Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 14th, 2019. Holy smokes. And I will entertain a motion to reopen the continued public, or open the continued public hearing for 52 and 55 Wilson Street Stormwater Management Permit application and earth removal permit application.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Please come forward. Thanks for your patience. Good evening. All right. We don't really have an update, I don't believe. Or do we have anything?
I don't think there was anything to update.
We kind of ran out of time, I think, is what happened. Okay, I'm just getting to the,
Did you receive the DPU, the document that we got?
Yep.
Some approval from DPU?
Correct. The Department of Public Utilities did issue an order regarding the zoning exemption for the facility.
Aaron
They did
Rodgers
grant it.
is the answer here.
Sorry.
yeah, what was the date of the DPU decision?
December 20th.
All right, so looking at the agenda, we can talk about the DP decision. Let's see. But looking at the detailed agenda for the discussion, the next item would be discuss stormwater management and earth removal criteria and plan revisions to be made, if any. Did anybody have any revisions to make or suggest?
So just to reiterate that not much land is going to be removed.
Yeah, I mean, we had provided the board with kind of the worst-case scenario. So we've been looking at cut and fill analyses, and there's actually more fill coming onto the site, but there's some material, for those who are on the site walk, there's a lot of rock out there, and some of that material might need to be moved off-site. So that would be the worst-case scenario, but we are trying to find locations on-site and reuse as much of that material as possible.
Thank you.
There is not an agenda item to discuss the DPU decision, but did anybody have anything that they wanted to bring forward from that?
I'm really happy that we're getting fire training from this arrangement. It's very important for your facility as well as for the town and the safety of our fire staff, so I'm very pleased with that. Thank you.
Anybody else? For the public's information, that decision is available to be read on our site, and I'm sure on the town page.
I guess I have one more, I have
Yeah.
a question. They have the activity hours at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Was that what we had discussed as being the hours we were okay with? Because those are the school hours, the 7 p.m., the 7 a.m.
Are those typical construction hours? Yeah.
Yeah, we tried to tried to maintain the existing town bylaws, what was stated in there.
I think we were a little concerned with the truck traffic in the center of town operating at the same time as the buses. And I think we had tried to move it back to 9 a.m. And then again, to sort of abbreviate during the school let-out hours between 2:30 and 4, I think were our concerns. And I'm not sure how you would word that. So I'm not sure how other people feel about that. I'm just concerned that, that there are moving trucks and they're pretty large and could create issues with bus pickup and, along Main Street to the highway.
Yeah, I think we reviewed actually last Wednesday the traffic management plan with both the police and fire chief. Mm-hmm. Within that, we have kind of not a histogram, but kind of outlines kind of expected truck traffic and volumes throughout the period of the day, assuming the school hours and the time of the year, I guess. We try to spread a lot of that out, so there's kind of around the 7 a.m. time period. It's mostly folks that are commuting to the job site. Not to say there wouldn't be a potential, I guess, for truck traffic, since we don't really stipulate that, but we certainly would, we do identify in there the bus routes that the trucks would, or the traffic could potentially encounter on the way from 495 to the site, so we would certainly try to steer away from that
There are
as much as
also
possible.
walkers that walk to school too. I'm just wondering if we could have that line item number 2 developed a little bit better. Maybe you had discussed it with the police and you identified the ebbs and the tides of the flow of traffic. If you could maybe illustrate it in a paragraph or a couple sentences, clarify it a little better for us.
Is this on the draft conditions number 2, Deb?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just as a question of clarification, I guess, we're talking about earth removal activity, which isn't just
I was just gonna say, I'm looking
trucking.
at the
There's-
water.
There's stuff that would be
Happens on
going
the site.
On site,
Yeah, that's true.
and I think,
Okay.
well, my personal opinion is that the applicant will modify their truck schedules to what works best for them.
Well, that's what I want to, if they could manage to do their operations that are on site at those hours that are mostly likely bus traffic hours, I think if we could somehow have some kind of identification that you will do that in that draft condition, for me, it would be appreciated.
Does it mention the traffic management plan in the conditions or in the bylaw? 'Cause it-
In the DPU decision, it has a traffic management plan that is already in existence, right, if I remember that
correct.
correctly?
And you worked with the Hopkinton Fire and Police to put that together?
And schools.
In this,
We extended an invite to the schools. I don't think, we didn't have anyone from the school department participate. However, Chief Slamman and Chief Lee had felt that they could probably best participate in the review and then provide their commentary, I guess, back to the school department. We certainly could extend another review meeting, I think, with the school department, whether or not they would accept that, certainly. And we certainly are very cognizant and aware of the schools particularly, and folks, children waiting out at the bus stop. And we do cover that with our construction crews, whether it's for this project or other work, and even just the plant personnel every, September, and then we try to reinforce it throughout the year. So we're definitely aware of that. I think we'd struggle a little bit to completely eliminate all traffic between 7 and 9 a.m. For the project, but
Well, I don't mean for the project, I mean truck traffic, heavy truck traffic that could be uncontrolled should a small child, in extreme situations. I just like some kind of clarification in
So
that.
Deb, I just want to interject, I think that for this, we have to focus on, these 2 applications, right?
Okay.
So it is just the project for us,
Okay.
for the truck traffic. Do I remember correctly that the TMP makes you split up routes, so all the traffic is not expected to go up Wilson Street? Is that right?
yeah, we will have likely very little traffic,
Cedar
actually.
and the old Rafferty Road now.
Yeah, so it was a topic of, I guess, of the meeting last Wednesday, but most traffic would travel from 495 up 135 to the intersection with 85, and then head down towards the old Rafferty Road, Legacy Farms North, and then would come up Legacy Farms North and then enter the facility off of either that or the Wilson Street roadway, or access way. I know there was talk of like the water main project that perhaps may take place this spring or summer, so we would look to work with the police department, fire department to maybe alter some of that access during that time frame. Although it sounded like a lot of that work might be at evenings. So throughout the project, we'd be notifying the fire department on I think it's a weekly or bi-weekly basis, as to the kind of forward-looking 1 week ahead. And depending on, I guess, what items may be taking place in town, we'd kind of make changes to our plan to try to accommodate some of that. So I'm not sure if that necessarily addresses your concern. but-
No, it doesn't. I would like some clarification within the school hours of busing hours. Just what, if you discussed it, that's great. I just would like it clarified here in our draft conditions. In a sentence, perhaps,
Or do you have a suggestion?
of how to word it.
I have a suggestion. So basically, it says right now, this is the earth removal activity, item 2. Earth removal shall occur only between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Saturday. And I would suggest adding, comma, with traffic on public roadways limited during the school opening, school, what would you call it? School what?
Commuting hours?
Commuting hours.
So specific
Yeah.
during school commuting hours?
So you've already stated that you do limit that, and so this is just saying,
Could we, in conjunction with the communication that they'll have with the fire and the police? Because I think that's the most important.
Yeah,
Rather than limiting specific hours, just that they're in contact with the fire and police to make sure it's safe.
okay, so with traffic on public roadways limited in accordance with,
You said you're gonna
Guidance from the police,
guidance from
and
the
fire
fire and
department
police for
type
the
of-
traffic management plan? I don't know.
I liked the school commuting hours in conjunction with the police and fire department, monitored.
traffic on public roadways limited during school commuting hours in accordance with, I don't know how long we can make this sentence.
In accordance,
in the traffic management plan.
In accordance with the traffic management plan. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the traffic management plan, just for clarity for us and for the public, includes this ongoing conversation with police and fire. Is that correct? How does that ongoing
The ongoing communication was stipulated as, or I guess was suggested by the company as part of the DPU proceeding. So that became, I won't say a condition, but it became something that we committed to during the proceeding. So the ongoing communication with the fire department specifically, that became part of the state's docket.
Okay.
The traffic management plan, again, was included in the docket and the conversations that we had with the state and the town, and then that was formalized in the order or the condition, the order from the state.
Right.
So that very specifically, the traffic management plan had to be developed, and we had that.
And that's really for plant operations, that's not for these two?
No, that's for construction.
It is,
Specific to
okay.
construction.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Would it be reasonable to add to the condition that the traffic management plan should be completed and in place prior to the beginning of construction?
Yes.
How about that?
That's good.
How about that? Does that work for folks? All right, so are you going to add that to number 2, or are you going to make a separate condition?
It's number 2.
Okay. Does that work, Deb?
so that's the only sentence, so it wouldn't, no, it's
No,
just
in
following
addition
it. Yeah, that's great. Yep.
And that's fine?
Yes.
And just recognize that your conditions apply only to the earth removal portion of construction and not to any other part of construction.
Because we're doing it on the earth removal
Just
permit.
Or the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is all we can do.
We'd certainly apply that throughout the project anyways.
Okay.
That's consistent with what we had committed to with the state, so.
I'm just thinking for enforcement purposes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, yeah. Okay, does anybody have any other additions or suggestions for either of the draft conditions, the earth removal or the stormwater? And here's when I share with you that because of my technological deficiencies, I can't go back and forth from the outline to the draft conditions. So I don't think that we really have any open items on the outlines. Somebody could correct me if I'm...
It's item 8, discuss stormwater management, earth removal criteria, and plan revisions to be made, if any, which I think we crossed off. And discuss conditions of approval with applicant, which...
Okay, which we're doing. Perfect.
And then close the public hearings.
All right. All right. So anybody have anything else to add before we bring this thing in for a landing? All right. So usually we vote the decision before we close the public hearing. So let me just read for the benefit of the public and the applicant and all of us, not word for word, mind you, but in general, the draft conditions for the stormwater management permit at 52 and 55 Wilson Street. All erosion and sediment control shall comply with the following performance criteria, and there are several listed, and they are standard conditions. There's nothing added that's new, is there, Elaine? I didn't think so. And again, it's that technology thing for Mrs. Kramer. Shh. Actually, you can help me, I'm sorry. Okay, what was, if I press
Take
this?
the bookmarks, yeah.
Yeah?
You can jump more easily from document to document.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a course from, oh, look at that.
There's your outline, and there's your draft conditions.
All right. Coming into this century. All right, I'm sorry. The project, number 2, the project shall comply with the following erosion and sediment control requirements. These are all standard as well. Prior to any land disturbance activities commencing on site, the developer shall mark limits of land of no disturbance, etc. Appropriate erosion and sediment control measures shall be installed prior to soil disturbance. Sediment shall be removed once the volume reaches, a certain measure, 1/4 to 1/2 inch height of the hay bale. Sediment from sediment traps or sedimentation ponds shall be removed when design capacity has been reduced by 50%. Soil stockpiles must be stabilized or covered at the end of each workday. Disturbed areas remaining idle for more than 14 days shall be stabilized with seeding, wood chips, bark mulch, etc. Disturbed areas remaining idle for more than 14 days shall be stabilized with seeding, etc. For active construction areas such as borrow or stockpile areas, roadway improvements, and areas within 50 feet of a building under construction, a perimeter sediment control system shall be installed. A tracking pad or other approved stabilization method shall be constructed at all entrance/exit points of the site. Permanent seeding shall be undertaken in the spring from March through May, and in late summer and early fall from August through October 15th. All slopes steeper than 3 to 1, as well as perimeter dikes, sediment basins, or traps and embankments must, upon completion, be immediately stabilized with sod, seed, and anchored straw mulch or other stabilization measures. Temporary sediment trapping devices must not be removed until permanent stabilization is established in all contributory drainage areas. All temporary erosion and sediment control measures shall be removed after final site stabilization. A minimum of 7 days prior to the start of construction, a detailed construction sequence shall be submitted to the principal planner by the site contractor for review and approval. A copy of the signed stormwater pollution prevention plan shall be provided to the board prior to construction. All required SWPPP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, stormwater construction site inspection report shall be submitted to the principal planner within 14 days of each inspection. An adequate stockpile of erosion control materials shall be on site at all times. The disturbed area shall be temporarily stabilized by hydroseeding if construction of the replacement LNG facility is not commenced within 30 days of lot clearing. Initial excavation of the proposed stormwater infiltration basin that is to be used as a temporary sediment basin during construction shall be limited to 6 to 12 inches above finished grade. Construction shall not commence until all required permits and approvals have been obtained. Upon permit approval, a wet weather stormwater grab sample shall be collected once per year for 3 years. And there's more detail on that. Oh, and that's the last one, sorry. So, does anybody have any conditions to suggest to add to those? I'll entertain a motion to approve the stormwater permit with those conditions.
So
May I
moved.
just add that you would also find that the project meets the standards in section .070 of the regulations? 7.0. 7.0, so those are the standards that Beta has used in going through, and it's indicated that they meet all of the standards.
So for point of order, would that be the second scenario that you've listed?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm
Does that have to be
sorry.
read out?
Where am I?
I think you pretty much have done that, but yes, so you're approving the application by finding that the project meets the standards and adequately protects water resources that's set forth in the bylaw and the regulations with the conditions that you've listed.
Perfect. I love the way you said that. We'll add that to the motion. Was it moved? So moved. Seconded?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I really am going to have to take a computer course before I do this job again. All right, thanks for your patience, everybody.
There's a lot of information in front of us.
I know, you're desperate to help me. You could slide right over it now.
You're on it now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on it now. Yep. Okay, so for the earth removal permit, where do I find the conditions of the regs?
The conditions of the regulations? So you get to
Findings
the
right here?
conditions, but that's
I'm
where
on the
you are.
draft conditions, yep.
And the findings are the bottom of my memo, page 2.
Oh, thank you. I just needed to know where I was looking for. All righty. So, I am learning real time in front of you. It's a little embarrassing, but look at me go. All right, so the findings that we should, when there's a waiver request, we should deal with as well. There we go. All right. So, the findings need, the proposed earth removal conforms to the purpose of the chapter, which is Chapter 96 of the general bylaws, Section 96.6. So, removal conforms to the purpose of the chapter. The earth removal operation on the permitted lot will not be injurious or dangerous to the public health or safety, produce noise, dust, or other effects detrimental to the normal use of the adjacent property, have material adverse effects on the health, safety of persons living in the neighborhood or on the use or amenities of adjacent land. The earth removal activity will not result in traffic conditions on roads in the area of the earth removal activity which will cause unsafe and dangerous conditions. The regulations contained in this chapter will be complied with. The bylaw states that the board may impose permit conditions. Yep, okay. Those are the findings that we need to find. And there is specifically a waiver request. The applicant has requested a waiver from Section 96-3H, which requires that a 100-foot buffer strip of undisturbed land be maintained at all boundaries of the lot and street lines. The applicant has stated that the buffer is less than 100 feet in various areas of the site. A formal vote granting a waiver from Section 96.3H is required. Before we do the conditions, I would say?
I would say yes.
Okay, all right. So, just for the public's information, the buffer that it's imposing on is all state-owned land or undisturbed land?
It's DCR land to
DCR
the rear of the property, and also Wilson Street, so we're within previously disturbed areas up near Wilson Street.
All right. So, would anybody like to make a motion on granting the waiver request?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion?
Lots of seconds. And a discussion, yes.
And just for clarification for people watching at home or here, there's also security aspect of the fencing and distance from the street and DCR land and Wilson Street and North, the new name of the street there. So,
Yeah.
so it's pre-disturbed
Legacy Farms North.
and there's no new disturbances other than what you're be constructed for the gate.
No,
No further disturbance.
So this is so if,
Well, yeah,
I might reiterate your question back. So we're not, you're right, there's security fencing, that has all been identified,
Right.
and that is identified on the plan too. And on the rear of the property, we are within 75 feet of there's 75 feet of undisturbed.
Which is near the
land,
DCR land.
Which is near the DCR land.
I apologize,
And that-
just 1 second. I do have to take a motion to open and continue after the discussion concludes on this public hearing, the Elmwood Farms 3 subdivision discussion.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sorry, go.
And that includes the security fencing and anything around it, so that doesn't, the security fencing doesn't go beyond that 75 feet.
Thank you.
Any other questions or feedback, or, okay. I think we're ready for a vote on the waiver. All those in favor of granting the waiver signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. So then, just specifically, we do find that granting of the permit is in keeping with the Chapter 96 of the general bylaws, Section 96.6, the conditions that I just read. Is that correct? Does anybody have any feedback on that? Okay. So then the conditions, here we go. Look at me go, Amy. Back to the conditions. Oh, that's fun. Okay, so draft conditions for 52 and 55 Wilson Street, the earth removal permit. The duration of the permit shall be for 24 months, which will start on the date that the earth removal activity commences. The earth removal activity shall occur only between the hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday. And then the additional sentence is,
With traffic on public roadways limited during the school commuting hours in accordance with the traffic management plan. The traffic management plan shall be completed and in place prior to the commencement of construction.
perfect. The permit is not assignable. The applicant shall post a bond or make a deposit with the town in the amount of $10,000 to guarantee the conformity with the provisions or conditions of the permit. There's just a typo there on
yeah, there's an extra A.
underneath the fourth one, between 4 and 5. The applicant shall submit a photographic survey of Wilson Street and Legacy Farms Road, Old Rafferty Road, in the vicinity of the project prior to and upon completion of the earthwork activity. In the event that any of the permit conditions are not faithfully observed and performed, the board shall have the authority to revoke the permit at any time in accordance with the provisions of the earth removal bylaw. Earth removal activities shall not commence until all required permits and approvals have been obtained. And I think that's it. Yes, yes. So I'll entertain a motion on the permit, the special permit for the earth removal.
So moved.
Second
To approve the special permit for the earth removal.
So moved.
and second.
All right, any discussion?
I have a question on 5.
Yes.
Did we not discuss some sort of remedy if the road was not in a usable condition? Or that if there was serious damage done to the road because of these activities? I mean, we've gotten the condition that we're going to look at it before and after, but was there not discussion on some sort of remedy if there was an issue?
I don't recall that there was.
The $10,000 is for conforming. I'm assuming
To the conditions, right?
But the conditions don't state.
Specific.
there'll
If you
be
look at
any
number
remedy.
4, the town may use the bond or deposit in the event that the applicant does not comply with all the terms and conditions and complete all restoration in a manner satisfactory to the board in accordance with the permit. Significant public safety hazards exist which will not be addressed by the applicant or material environmental damage has resulted from the earth removal activity and remediation will not be addressed by the applicant in a manner satisfactory to the board. So, does that cover
What-
the roadway by saying public safety hazards?
Do you think $10,000 is
Restoration?
enough?
So I don't know that it specifically covers the roadway. I think it's
No?
better to delineate that, but I don't know, yeah. And if it is the roadway, I'm not sure $10,000 is adequate, but I don't know.
I wanted to add too that the Legacy Farms trucks use that road a lot too. They're also very heavy, so it would be it's going to be very difficult to determine exactly whose trucks caused the problem. So I don't know how we address that in the conditions.
I'm not sure either, but that's not the thing that's in front of us. This
Okay.
is the one that's in front of us.
I thought we were addressing it by the photographs of the street.
So
Although there could be other people using the street, sure.
But it's a great question. So does the board want to, entertain some remedy? Go ahead, Carol.
I'm just looking to Elaine for a suggestion.
You could add a sentence that says that the applicant shall be responsible for repairing any damage to the roadway.
So moved.
And you were
Or-
going to say, Deb?
Or we could increase the bond amount to repair the roadway should it be damaged.
So I'm a little more in favor of Elaine's word, this is me personally, rather than trying to estimate an amount. Plus, I don't think we want to take it on if,
That's
It's always
true.
preferable to have someone else do
Yes.
the repairs.
Okay, sure.
right.
All right.
So what was the wording, Elaine?
I think something like the applicant shall be responsible for repairing any damage to the roadway.
Okay. So we're going to add that on to number 5?
That's a friendly amendment?
I don't think it's an amendment, I think it's just we're still,
Okay.
I don't think we have to amend, do we? We're still in
We're
discussion
still just
mode.
discussing what it might
But
say.
thank you, Dave.
Sure, whatever you need, I'm here.
Did you have something?
Yeah, is there a way to clarify it so that it's damage caused to the roadway by the project? And I know maybe that becomes complicated, because again, Legacy Farms North.
I mean, it's totally fair, and I think that's,
I suspect the burden would probably be on us to show that it wasn't us.
You could say
I
damage to
think
the
we'd
roadway
recognize.
caused by the project, and then
yeah, I definitely think that's a fair clarification.
Okay.
It's still gonna be challenging if that
I understand.
is what happens. How about this? The honor system, if you wreck it, you fix it. But yeah, it'll be, I understand that it'll be difficult, but I think it's important to have some specific wording in there. Thanks, Carol. Anything else? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
just close the
What will you do?
Oh, and I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Just leave it open forever.
I have the rest of the year booked every other week, so.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? And I realized that the next thing wasn't a public hearing, but I opened one as if it was anyway. But Elmwood Farms 3 subdivision is just a discussion. Thanks for your patience, everybody. So, we do have a continued public hearing at 7:45, so I'm going to interrupt and do what I did the last time and just move it to the end, but please do go ahead and introduce yourself and start.
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard of hearing.
That's okay. So we have a continued public hearing at 7:45. Procedurally, I'll have to interrupt you and open that and continue it until the conclusion of the discussion. So just in a couple of minutes, I'm going to interrupt you briefly, that's all.
At 7:45, you can just vote to continue that to February.
Okay.
No, stay here.
Do we have a date in February?
No, I misunderstood.
She's just gonna open and continue the hearing.
All right, yeah.
Go ahead.
So just in a couple minutes, we'll do that. Go ahead.
My name's Alan Greenwald. I'm the trustee of Abbott Realty Trust. I'm also an attorney in Milford. Although the engineer is going to do the bulk of the talking, I just want to give you a little bit of the background, because what we're talking about preliminarily here is a modification of a 30-year-old subdivision. The subdivision was approved in 1989, almost 30 years ago. And the issues during the 30-year period have been town storage. Back in the 90s, we had multiple meetings with the then Water and Sewer Board, and we were able to get, in the early 90s, some sewer permits, in the late 90s, other sewer permits, and put in 35 houses into this subdivision, all on Blueberry Lane, and have not been able to get sewer for the remaining 24 lots for the last 20 years. And at some point, the wetlands regulations changed, and as a result of the new definitions of wetlands, some of our land, which was not previously wetlands, became wetlands, and as a result, we've lost 8 of the 24 lots. Starting maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we've made various attempts, we had meetings with DPW and various other town departments and boards, trying to find a global solution that would work for the town and work for us. And during the course of that, at the recommendation of the head of the Department of Public Works, we the engineers went and retested the land.
I'm going to actually, this is the moment when I interrupt you for momentarily. I'm sorry. I'll entertain a motion to open and continue the public hearing for the Maspenock Woods West Elm Street to February 25th at
Depends on the zoning hearing, you want to have that too, right? 1 hour. So that would be, are we starting at 7 or 7:30?
7:30 unless we change it.
8:30 is probably another half hour, say 8. How about 8:30?
How about 8:30?
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. We had these meetings, did all the retesting, the recommendation of the department. The testing again indicated that ordinary systems would not work and we would need town sewer. We also discussed various things that we would be doing for the town, and much to our surprise, we ultimately got a letter from the head of the Department of Public Works turning us down. At that point, we had no choice, but we instituted a lawsuit, and
So
then...
tell me the year on that?
What's that?
The year? When was that?
What year?
Last year.
Last year, okay.
Yep. And during the course of it, and we hadn't gotten very far, the town council got in touch with our attorneys, I'm not handling the litigation, and recommended that they think that there's a way of working this out, and recommending that the case be continued to give the parties an opportunity to work things out. Among other things, they indicated that they were doing something within the framework of of their rules and regulations, how they go about it, so that they think they can work out the town sewer part for us. And subsequent to that, we had a meeting with various of the town officials, and we're attempting to work out a resolution of everything. And among the things that have to be resolved is a couple of issues which are planning board issues, and on an informal basis, we asked to appear before you so that we could discuss those issues. What essentially has happened, as will be explained by the engineer, the middle of our property was pulled out so that it had been set up, these 24 lots had been set up on 3 roads. One of those roads has disappeared, the other one has been cut, the connection has been cut off, so that as a result of the new wetlands regulations, we now have 8 lots on each of 2 lots, on each of 2 roads, all of which, and each of the roads have about a cul-de-sac at about 1,000 feet. And one of the things which we need to discuss with you is the possibility of a waiver with the modified plan that we want to submit, which is essentially the same plan as we had before, but with lots, the roads are the same, except for the extent that they've disappeared, so that what we're dealing with is a situation whereby the approved subdivision plan needs this kind of attention in order to be able to permit us to build even the 16 lots which are left. There are also the other issue that we want to discuss is a drainage issue. The drainage plan had been prepared initially to cover the entire subdivision, which includes the 8 lots that we've lost. There have been some changes in the regs, and the existing drainage which is in, we believe should take care of and was planned for all of the lots, but we do want to also discuss those things so that I'll turn it over to the engineer to more precisely describe what it is that we're looking to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, Rob Truax of GLM Engineering. I had sent some plans in today for Elaine, and we were able to pass those out. They have these. To give you the overview. Yes,
On
we
off
have
the
them.
presses here.
So I thought it would just make it easier. I'll step on the board.
And just so you know, it's also up here, so if you see me looking above you, it's not that I'm not listening to you, I'm actually...
You're not staring off into space.
Just for clarification.
So this is the proposed layout that you see up there right now. This is what's coming from the original subdivision. And you can see the underlying roadways and lot lines for the old subdivision. And basically, the 2 roads, Myrtle Avenue, follows the exact same path as the original subdivision, and all the lots to the left are the exact same lots. The ones to the right are similar until you get to the last 2. They've been modified a little. And you can see that Fitch Road now, which comes in, or Fitch Avenue, which comes in off Newbury as well, no longer connects over to Myrtle Ave, and that ends in a cul-de-sac. And if you look in there where the area is hatched, that's what we're calling the open space parcel, which was the open space land that we could deed to the town. And most of that primarily is wetlands, as a result of the recent flagging that was done by our office in the last couple of years. So that area is now considered wetlands. It would be difficult to run the roads through there, obviously. You'd have to extend, you'd have to go over the 5,000 square feet of filling, be a limited project status, and go through a lot of hoops, and I don't think it would be appreciated by the Conservation Commission at this point in time. Also on the proposed layout now, there's a small triangular piece over behind, I think what's called, I can't read it on my plan. Off of Fitch Ave to the back there, you see it hatched out. There's a small triangular piece right there. And that comes down with a 20-foot strip that connects to Fitch Ave for a walking path, for a future walking path. I believe there's town land behind that.
And that had to do with prior discussions we had with the town, because they own that land, and they asked us to give them that piece of land so that they could have either a walking path or a budded bike path. So that was cut out to give to the town.
What is the town-owned
It's-
land back there?
The EMC Park and the Marathon School.
EMC Park, okay.
And the new
So
school.
that would give a connection out to Fitch Ave with a 20-foot strip off of that open space piece.
Okay.
So the Fitch Ave Road is approximately 900 feet in length to the end of that proposed cul-de-sac. The Myrtle Ave Road is 1,200 feet to the end, right at the property line where it has a temporary turnaround shown. So we'd be looking for waivers on the dead ends, obviously, for the modification. We'd also be looking for consideration about not redesigning the drainage system that's already been designed, and approved, and built from the previous subdivision. The detention basins and all that were constructed, built as part of a whole subdivision that was approved back in
30 years ago.
1990s. So with this, the last phase of this was built in like 98, 99, so we're talking 20 years since they've been out there. So, and we could make some improvements to that, obviously, if the board so desired. But other than that, so the project goes from a 24-lot subdivision to 16. And, you know, the lots, some of them especially on the Fitch Ave side, have been slightly reconfigured. You can see the old lines underneath. If you went back to the old subdivision, we've just been blacked out. But you can see some of that's just been reconfigured in the shape to accommodate the lots, and as well as the open space portion. And there was a little stub road that went off in that direction as well that's now been eliminated. So we're really just looking for input on the board, where we will go in the future. You know, we obviously have to go through conservation as well for this approval. If the Myrtle Ave side, there will be some wetland filling. As you can see, it extends up into the road. It's a hatched out area where that wetland extends up into the proposed roadway. So we'll be in front of them as well to do the wetland filling, as well as working in the buffer zones. So this will go back before them for order of conditions. So we're just looking for input from the board, for guidance. You know, we're going to come back in at some point with this modification as a formal submittal, and just what the pleasure of the board is and how we approach it, and what things you'd be looking for from us.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Anxious.
Desperate, go.
You say tomato, I say tomato. Just a quick question. I mean, I don't have any of the history on this, but the roads that are the original plan that were shooting off the back there, was that before the town bought the Terry property and put the school in? Did somebody envision those coming out to
Not 100%.
85?
I didn't work on it back then. I don't know the history that much.
Well, EMC Park would have still been there, right?
Right.
I don't know how long the town's owned.
Okay, thanks. Just curious.
Totally the 90s, but totally not the 80s.
Thank you.
I think I had 5 kids when the EMC went in. I think I was there.
I have a similar question about Myrtle Street. In both instances, it's a dead end, is is it partly built now?
None of it's built.
Is this a curb cut?
Blueberry Lane is all
Blueberry Lane's all built.
But it's a curb cut on
public road right now.
All the drainage, the sewer, the water stuff, everything's in place going into the subdivision. The roundings were there, and that's it.
But are there curb cuts currently? No.
I can't recall. I haven't been out there for a while. I have to.
The audience is shaking their head no,
Bill,
so we're
he
gonna,
doesn't recall.
Yeah, he built the houses. He doesn't recall. No, I don't. No, they're not here.
So in a newer plan, it shows like half of a roundabout. Is that on the end of Myrtle Street? Is that accurate, or am I reading that wrong? That's actually on the original plan too.
Half of a roundabout.
Like a cul-de-sac kind of thing.
This little
Oh, at the end of
semicircle.
it?
yeah.
That was on the original plan. Yeah.
So would that be a, sorry, would
It's
that be a
still
cul-de-sac
there?
going forward? Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's still on.
That's still. It was the same layout. We haven't changed that.
Okay.
You absolutely can, Amy.
I was gonna ask Elaine if she could remember, what is the maximum length for a cul-de-sac that we allow?
500.
500 feet, but it still needs a waiver to have.
Yeah, both of them, right?
500.
So, I'm sorry. So 500 feet is the maximum, but it's still a waiver to do a dead end?
It's still a dead end, it's not a by right situation. It's, the board has to make a finding that there's exceptional circumstances.
And this would be exceptional circumstances, would it?
An applicant would have to make their case.
Yeah, for the dead end to start with, and then also for the additional waiver. One of your requests is more than twice what the maximum is, right? So that's a heavy lift. I'm just, from my perspective, that's a heavy lift.
Oh, the 1,200.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Not to say I told you so, nanny, boo-boo, but.
Don't do it, just don't do it, because,
No, I can.
no, you
So
really
we
can't
said-
because exceptional circumstances.
No, I'm saying we set a precedence with the last project that we did.
Exceptional circumstances.
And I'm not a fan of it, but that kind of puts us in a predicament here.
Okay, and just from my perspective, it would, I would be, not be in favor of waiving the new stormwater regs. I think that any new project, particularly a project that was designed 30 years ago, long before today's stormwater regs were envisioned, needs to be brought up to standard. That's just my opinion.
I would agree. If these houses were built 30 years ago, there'd be so many problems with wet basements. That's why these laws are important. I would suggest the Myrtle Street being a dead end won't fly. And I would suggest coming back with something that does fit our regulations without having to ask for anything to be changed. So work with what you have, and it's not going to be what you had in 1990. What do you have in 2019? Then come back to us.
2089? Okay, I get
So
you. I
you're
get
saying
you.
against, you're suggesting that we design it with 500-foot cul-de-sacs, if that's all we can make work.
Whatever fits our bylaws in 2019, and come back with the best plan that's best for the neighbors, best for the town, best for you, without having to, this Myrtle Avenue is not in compliance with current standards, for instance. It'd just be better if you just look at it with fresh eyes and rework it, because more.
From my perspective, it's the exceptional circumstances. Why, you'd have to make your case.
Okay.
You'd have to make your case. Anybody else have particularly quick feedback or questions?
Just real quick
Yeah.
comment. Mr. Durso was saying possible shorter, or you mentioned possible shorter dead ends, but one other option is to possibly try to connect the two roads through the back if possible. I understand that's a big, because of the wetlands, but there is a smaller width of wetlands in the back of your property, right? So I'm just throwing options out there.
What is the delineation of the wetlands? Is that recent?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's the net change? What was the wetlands before?
I don't think there was any shown. It's kind of a forested wetland. It's not, I don't know how I would describe it. Like if you walked it on a dry summer, if you weren't familiar with wetlands, you might walk right through it and not know it was
Yeah, they're
there.
vernal pools.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
So
So it's just sloping land, and it's a very high water table, poor soil, so it doesn't infiltrate well, so it just gets trapped there now, especially probably since the houses were built on Blueberry, and they're built up, so the water's getting trapped behind the houses. So over the years, it's been a long time, that water's been trapped in there, and it's just not infiltrating back in the ground. Hence the poor perk test that we couldn't do septic systems and we need the sewer.
Right, oh, so Blueberry is Seward, is not
Correct,
Seward?
no, it is.
Is Seward.
It's all sewered,
Okay.
everything else in the area is sewered except for this piece.
Everything else in the area, Ash Street, is it Ash Street around it?
Everything within this subdivision that was built prior.
In the subdivision?
Correct.
Okay,
Susan Drive is not sewer.
yeah, okay. I know that we have neighbors who might want to offer initial questions or comments, so it's a good time for public comment if anybody has anything they need to say. or would like to say. You do, just procedurally, you do need to come forward, introduce yourself, give your address, and you do need to be at the microphone so folks at home can hear you if you would like to make a contribution at this time.
Hi, I'm Sue Wheeler, and I live at 37 Blueberry. We have some concerns because most of our yards are very wet on Blueberry, and pooling is significant, some much more than others. Our backyards are all wet. In terms of wetlands, it is muddy even in the summertime in the back of the yards, a lot of them. My question has to be now with the school back there, how does that affect this property, the flow of water, the septic, whatever it is? Things have changed in many of the yards where I've got a lot more water, and I'm just curious now because in the original plans, the school was nowhere there. And so now there's a lot of people, a lot more construction has gone on back there, and most neighbors have seen a lot more water in their yards. So I'm just curious if, you have any thoughts on how the school has affected this plan, this piece of property. So that's the first.
We just have to look at that. We'll throw that forward. Do you have other things you want to make sure?
It's just a concern too with the flow of traffic and the current, just the traffic on the road and where this actually cuts through and, starts and ends basically. That's all.
I have a question. You're at 37 Blueberry, Ms. Wheeler. Where on this map would you be on the, between Myrtle and Adams or?
I'm actually to the right, just to the right of where Fitch would be.
Okay. So, next to where they'd be building on lot 6.
I can't even read it, to be honest.
It's really tiny type, I didn't bring my
Okay,
glasses.
no, that's okay. I'm down here, yep.
All right.
So right, almost off the.
The bottom.
Yeah.
Yes, yep, I'm off the bottom.
But next to the contiguous project.
I think I'm 2 down from that, but right there, right around the corner there.
I see.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Is there anybody else?
These are the headwaters of the Charles River.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Gelbwax. I live at 19 Blueberry Lane. How are you? My main concern is drainage. When I moved in 2010, I immediately realized I bought a property that was very, very, very wet. And if you drive on Blueberry Lane at any given time, there's pooling of water in front of probably 50% of the homes on the right side, which is the side I live on, which would be really concerning to me because we had to put a lot of money into just getting the drainage problem solved at my one property at number 19.
And are you on this map?
I am. I believe I'm like right here,
19.
1 or 2 over from here.
None of us can see.
Right next to the new wetland designation.
So to the right of Adams
right.
Street,
Second over from Adams.
Second over.
long skinny lot?
I walk the property constantly, and it's wet 365 days a year. It's never dry. Now, obviously, I'm pretty close to the new wetland designation, so I'm not surprised. But the properties, I would say 2 or 3 on both sides of me, and some of my neighbors are here, I know, are very wet as well. We've had basement problems in the neighborhood, just a lot of drainage problems. So that would be my main concern, is how are you gonna deal with the drainage? The properties, the land behind our properties is elevated. And the slopes and the grading of the original 1989 work was pretty bad, quite frankly. The grading all grades towards the back of all the homes. So that's why we get a lot more water than we probably should. It's higher, the land's higher behind us, and the grading of the original work was not so great. So that would be my main concern, is to make sure that we have some sort of serious look at the drainage, because it's very wet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
I have a question with regards to the memo. It says technically that because this is improved subdivision, it could be built. How could it be built at this point with the change in the wetlands?
So they could construct the plan, however, they would need probably an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. To the extent that they could get that or couldn't get it, it might prevent the building, or some of the building.
With the original road design?
Yes. So it is an approved plan, and technically could be built.
But I think it's good that we're here preliminarily so that we can look into it and see how we can address that.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you have our initial thoughts. I appreciate you that you came in.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can add one more thing, though. There's a similar construction project on Stony Brook, where it was approved in the 80s or 90s, and is finally got under construction today. And when they came to us, they had to look at everything again, and they readjusted how they were working with the wetlands and the bridges and different situations that they have, and they came out with a far better plan. So I'm hoping you guys can too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we have about 5 minutes. Can we approve the minutes from 12/3/2018?
Yes, I had one question. It's, I need to find it. It's on the last line of the minutes, I think. I wasn't sure if it was a typo or if it was just my misunderstanding. Where is this? Okay.
This is revolutionary, Amy.
Okay. It's in front of the zoning bylaw changes. I'm still looking for it. I'm just paging up. Okay, nope, still more zoning bylaws. Okay. It is the last large paragraph, so we're on page 62 of the whole packet. Maybe it is time for additional charrettes? What is that?
No, I just have mine individually,
Okay.
so but I don't know what.
Oh, it's your page 8.
You're my page 8? Okay.
Okay, so it's the second to the last line in the last big paragraph. It's starting with services from a consultant. And maybe it is time for additional charrettes? I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
A charrette?
Meetings,
A group meeting seeking,
brainstorming.
Yeah, charrette's.
gathering
I have
opinions.
never heard that term.
A charrette is a
Oh, you have not been
wonderful
around
experience.
I
long enough
have
in
never
Hopkinton.
heard that term.
To throw,
Legacy Farms, that's when they started charretting.
We charretted before that.
charrette is kind of a classic architectural term where everybody kind of throws all their ideas with tracing paper, or what we call bumwad, over the plans and does sort of a mass scribble.
Okay.
In public terms, it becomes more of a public meeting where people can throw their ideas down on a whiteboard in a more formal sense. So there's several different types of charrettes.
Okay,
So
thank you.
It's a lot of fun.
Word of the day.
And also in sort of practical terms, it's an opportunity for the public to come in from representation from potentially often It's a sort of a structured gathering so that there are representations from all boards and committees, people who are on boards and committees in town, and then intentionally invites the public into the conversation for that brainstorming.
Okay.
I enjoy a good charrette, I'm not gonna lie. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of December 3rd.
I have one modification as
Sure.
well. On page 7, where it begins, Ms. Feinberg stated she concerned about the size of the project, and at the end of that sentence, we had Mr., his name is Mr. The architect, Mr. Oldenburg, had stated that, and it's on the plans, the percentage of the building that fills the lot is correct. So it's 35, it's, the requirement, the town requirement is 35%, and it was met with a 25% solution.
Would you like to write that to me in an email exactly?
I will. I'll put it together in words. All right.
Okay, so page 7.
Yeah, page 7, a minor modification of a short sentence.
I move we approve the minutes pending, including that change, addition, or amendment.
As amended. As amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions?
Because I left the room. I missed the discussion.
You didn't really miss any.
Yep.
No,
You got it all.
Then I'm fine with what I heard.
We were-
You missed them explaining to me what a charrette is.
Oh, I heard that.
Okay.
Miss, you're looking for.
Without me looking for it, that's right. You came in time.
all right. I think we're almost at time, so I'm just gonna, are we at time? We are at time. I will entertain a motion to open the continued public hearing for 18 Cedar Street off-street parking special permit application.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Come on up.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I'm here at the moment. Big decision, would I come, wouldn't I come, who would come, what I would say to the, but I come to get any information I can, and to let you know that you already know that I was soundly defeated when I went to before the board on Wednesday.
Appeals. The Board of Appeals, just for the public.
The Board of Appeals, yes. So then I was kind of like, oh, what comes next kind of thing. And the reason I was defeated is because they felt the building was too large and they, you know, so, and didn't fit the streetscape. And so, you know, my vision had been that it was going to be a handsome building that would really add something to Route 85. You know, it would be very nicely landscaped and look good. So after, you know, kind of feeling bad for a while, I decided that I needed to call Michael Rogan, because he came to the meeting where this all happened, and it was the thing that when I heard Michael say how much he did not like my building, I really took that to heart, because I had heard a lot of concerns about parking and, you know, this and that and the other thing, but so I met with Michael this morning. He was generous enough to meet with Carl Oldenburg and myself. So, and it was very nice, and he's offered to work with us. And Carl and I then had another meeting, and our plan right now, preliminary, is that we are going to put together a couple of plans, one that suits our residential use. You know, we're a business zone property, downtown business zone property, but with a special permit, we could use it for multifamily residential. But I realize that everybody is very, the number is very big, the 8. And it was just a number that, it's just, anyway. So I realized that the whole town is kind of upset about this
So we're going to go back to the drawing board and see what we can come up with. And then the alternative, of course, is to use it as a business zone property and figure out, and we also went over some ideas for how we could, business zoning changes the use quite a lot. But I don't understand, because sometimes you can read the zoning rules and you think you understand what you can do, but then it's not really, there's something you've missed, or people have other ideas. I don't know. Am I wrong, Elaine? I don't know. Huh? I don't know. We had a conversation a year ago about my plan, and I was told, okay, you've done this right, you've met all this, you've done this, so I'm flying along thinking I'm doing everything right, and then I find out I'm not. So anyway, I also, I think you have in front of you the report, our response to the beta report, right? And so I was interested to know if you had any concerns about the beta report. Did you have any responses about the beta report for me?
Did this come after the packet?
Say it again?
Did the beta report come after the
Beta.
packet?
That's what came tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, did we answer the questions correctly, and was the report, as I read it, they just had these questions for us and we addressed the questions, and then just wanted to know.
Go ahead, Carol. I'll be honest with you, I did not have an opportunity to review it. It came late.
Okay.
So I did not actually look at it, so I apologize for that, because I can't actually answer your question.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm willing to take answers later if you don't have them tonight. Any thoughts that you have?
So we rely very heavily on our beta engineering consultants to do all the work that they are trained to do.
I'm sorry.
She has the letter from Beta today.
Oh, this is a new one? Oh, this is
Response to your response.
Oh, it's a response to my response, which I have not read.
Okay,
So,
all right.
okay.
But just in general, we take their information under advisement, but we weight it very heavily. There are engineers, they work for us, and we do
So,
rely on them.
Overall, what was their response to my response?
None of us have had an opportunity to read it.
Nobody's
It came
read it.
today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's a long response, so.
I'm not sure I even have that.
It came in email.
That's it, email not printed out, okay.
We don't have it.
Thank you. Beta is here. I apologize.
Hello. How are you?
I have January 11th beta, but that's a different.
So, yeah, go ahead. Thank you. I'm sorry. Introduce yourself and carry us away.
I'm Jill Bokoff with Beta Group. Phil Paradis and I wrote this letter. So I believe this was sent out Friday afternoon, maybe by Phil. But we responded to the letter, and most of our issues have been resolved at this time. We had a few major comments left, two of which are, we noticed the parking was revised slightly, and there are now a total of 14 spaces, and 4 of those are tandem. So that means there are only, 2 of the units will not have a tandem space. So we were just looking for some clarification on maybe how those would be numbered or assigned, or how that would really work. And then one of the other comments is that the access drive to the parking lot is shown as 18 feet, where 24 feet is required by law.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm sorry. And yes, I know. Maybe you haven't even seen this one.
I saw,
Oh, is
yeah, so it's right here, the 18 dimension.
Oh, okay, should be 24. Okay. All right.
And then also, the S3 is a turning plan and confirmation from the fire department.
So we haven't seen anything from, we saw the response that
a conversation happened with the fire department. We haven't seen anything in-house as far as a turning plan or a written response from the fire department. That's typically what we like to review. So we just made that comment that we haven't seen it yet.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Was there anything else that you wanted to ask us about?
Well, let's see. I wanted to say that I'm withdrawing. That's what I'm doing, right? I'm withdrawing my request. Well, I'm so confused about what happens. I'm withdrawing now,
So
but I'll be back at some point, perhaps.
So, do you want people's general perceptions about
Yes.
the parking? Because that's what was in front of us?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I want.
Okay. So I'll start, and then I'll let anybody else weigh in. You know that conceptually, I applaud the innovative idea, if it can work. I think that given the location and the size of the lot, the parking was too obtrusive, and it relied too heavily on relatively non-existent parking on adjacent streets. Even on a quiet Saturday morning, there's no flexibility on those, very little flexibility on the side streets. So, you know, it struck me that me personally, just me, that it was probably too aggressive for that lot, too much to try and put on that lot.
Yeah, basically, yeah, when you get down to, right, trying to put enough parking on the property to handle the neighborhood problem, you know, kind of, yeah, or whatever, it's a.
Yeah, so
neighborhood concern,
it's your piece of property to put on it what you want, if you can, right? But you do have to, from a practical standpoint, you have to address who's gonna live there if it's a residential piece, and you don't have existing flexibility, in my opinion. There's not a lot of flexibility in the surrounding neighborhood for overflow parking. That's just my impression.
I would agree with Muriel 100%. I think a smaller project, which would require less parking, would fit the neighborhood better. I do think it's important to have affordable living space downtown, which is one of the benefits.
I don't think it's gonna be affordable exactly, just to be careful of
Okay,
terminology.
sure.
It's market rate
Yeah.
Okay.
units.
Something downtown where people can live.
But they're small, yes.
Right, they're not McMansions.
Right.
And I think that, I wasn't on the site walk, but I did walk through and met with the neighbors, and I'm a little bit concerned about some of the interactions. There's a tree branch, you had a professional go onto your neighbor's property and cut down a rather large branch. Any community in the state has laws about that, and I think that was just...
That was unfortunate because I actually, when I was interviewing 2 tree trimmers to get started, because I had nothing else to do, and I believe I approached Alice's door and told her, or asked her, but it's been so long.
I walked the neighborhood, I'm
The
familiar
point
with
is, it
the
was a
neighborhood, familiar with the problems, familiar with the tree, and the tree in question is not on your property, and you had work done on it, and that's kind of a sticking point.
And also, that tree had not been identified by me to be trimmed, so there was some mistaken communication.
You hired someone, and they did.
I did hire somebody, and I do have a plan.
That's a concern for me.
Okay.
Is you should be able to deal with the neighbors better, especially when something's on their property, especially when there's a shared fence, that's their fence on their property that should be considered. I'd like to see this project move forward in a way that fits the neighborhood better, and I think you can do that. I hope you do that.
And I want to say that I did both go to the front door for my closest neighbor in the back.
We're not going to talk about the tree.
So I have tried to be in touch.
I think I can sort of piggyback that, but try to segue a little bit into helping you help define that. One of the things on the site visit that I and some others observed was that there wasn't really a clear boundary at this time, that a site survey or what's been done is not an official site survey, and that might help you determine where whose property the trees are on.
Mine is a survey. I think what Alice was referring to, she had a plot plan done. We talked to the surveyor, Joe Marklet, and so he had a hard time doing my survey and identifying, but...
Oh, so you did get a survey done.
But we're working off the survey that he did for us. And I'm not sure that... I heard, because the lawyer approached Joe, and Joe's records showed that a plot plan or something. I'm not quite sure of the circumstances.
Was this done after our walkthrough, our site visit?
Oh,
this was before.
The question of Joe, we went to Joe to ask him.
After?
After, yes.
After.
I didn't. The lawyer went to ask the question from him.
To Joe. So Joe did do a survey for you?
Joe is the author of the survey that we're working with, yes.
Okay.
It took him months to do it.
Okay.
And I had to kind of
sit
at his doorstep to get it done.
And then I would kind of segue a little bit further on, and I am in agreement that it's an awful lot to fit on that site, but I think that clarification as to how the parking flows by doing some flow study.
Good idea.
Might help you figure out some of the ins and outs, because it just seemed
tight.
Almost uncomfortably just to even get out of some of those farthest parking spots, and I just thought that it wouldn't help. That a further study might.
Yeah, I know Carl has done those kinds, and he showed me turning radiuses and all. And see, I have a different idea that if I had the 8 that's required, and then had 2 or 3 guest parking, that that I wouldn't
satisfy.
I wouldn't be spilling over into the street, but other people don't agree with me, so
okay,
that's the problem I'm dealing with.
All right.
I'm good, I just want to get us back on track.
I agree with what's been said, and particularly because of the neighborhood and the street parking situation. I think this is a unique situation where, the minimum parking requirements for, per bedroom is just a minimum, and you really have to think of it in terms of there's no parking available on streets in that area. There's just virtually none, so that would just be overflow for if they're having a party, not for realistic everyday kind of parking. So that's probably how you need to approach it. What you can put on that lot, that you can actually have adequate parking on the lot. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I was really pleased that you spoke with Mike Ruan, and I would love to see something, if possible, that preserves the historic structure, or the shape of it anyway, if you can. And I think that's an appropriately sized building for the lot, and maybe something could be done with that to make it into, a 2-family or 3-family or something. I don't know, but please, and I hope that you'll be able to talk to the neighbors and see what they want to. I know it is zoned for business, but some businesses could be very quiet, and maybe the neighbors would be happy with an office, a small office, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's why I was so happy to have this meeting this morning with Michael Rogan, because we did have a lot of interaction and a lot of his feedback, and he's volunteered to answer any questions that Carl has as we go forward, and so I feel I was very much apologized to him, because in my forgetfulness, he was the person I should have gone to much earlier, but the problem was I was overly enthusiastic about the plan, and so I was blindsided, because I was just starry-eyed about because I just think it was such a perfect position on a busy street to have this building. And
It's definitely good feedback to try and work with the neighbors. You know, it's a well-established.
But, you know, when I was if I call the neighbors and they tell me they aren't comfortable meeting with me,
Then
I've done my best. I've gone to the door, I've called.
Okay.
And there was either sickness or busyness and then not really comfortable talking with you.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Are you planning to withdraw your application?
I'm withdrawing, yes.
I motion,
Hold on.
So she would request and you would approve?
Yes. So you would request it. So go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I motion
Well,
that.
hold on. Can we get her request first?
I thought she was, okay.
I'm requesting that the board withdraw my, my
The application.
application.
I motion that we allow the application to be withdrawn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
If, after we vote, can the neighbors speak, or if the neighbors want to speak, should they speak now?
They can speak now if they want, yeah. You want? You have to. Come on up. Come forward. Just reminding people that folks at home can't hear you if you speak from the back of the room, so we have to have you up. And introduce yourself, please, and your address.
I'm Carol. I live at number 3 East Street.
Yes.
So what I'd like to say is I think the neighbors as a group would be very open to sitting with you as a group.
I'd love that.
To talk
So
about.
I have to remind you both that you speak through the chair.
I think the neighbors would be open as a group to sitting with Mrs. Brown to talk about potential for that property.
Okay.
I don't think, after the tree incident, I was pretty unwilling to talk with you directly. But I think that the neighbors would be open to that. The other thing, I can speak for myself, not for my neighbors, I would welcome even a one-level professional building with doctor's office in it or insurance company or something like that. I don't think anybody would have an objection to that. That would be something that usually is open during the day. They would close at 5 o'clock. There would be parking there, but even with the tree barrier, it would not be intrusive to the neighborhood. And given that it's business zoned, I think it's something that the neighbors would welcome as well. So I think, this has been tough for everybody, and the neighbors have been very anxious. I've been very anxious about what's going to happen there. We're concerned about our properties, but we're not totally opposed to something going in there. I just think it needs to be discussed amongst all of us as a group and not one-on-one. And I also like to make a comment, and I'll pass it through you, but in terms of the boundaries, there are boundary spikes for where the property line is between Cedar Street property and my property, and those boundary spikes have been there since I moved in, and I bought my property 13 years ago. And those are the spikes, as well as the survey plot plan were used to put that fence up. I mean, it was done in a very meticulous fashion in a way that we believed was on the property line. In fact, we ran that fence. The person that was putting the fence up and marking it out said to me, "I've got bad news for you. This property line goes through a tree." And so what we had to do is put the fence on one side of the tree and then on the other side of the tree. So a very honest effort was made to identify the property line. And and it was based on the plot plan and the spikes. So if there's dispute about that, then we can engage in some conversation.
Oh, of course, yes, okay. Yes. And I think sometimes what I've heard is that surveyors' equipment has changed, and it's much more, so it comes up with different results because the equipment has gotten newer over the years or something. So so I think that's why Joe had such a hard time doing it, and he was dealing with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else want to speak? All right, so we have a motion and a second to allow the applicant to withdraw the application. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I wondered if there are written minutes of these meetings?
There are detailed, lovely unbelievable.
Can I have a copy, please?
These will be ready.
Are these private? Or even the last time I was here?
Yeah, no.
I would love to have copies of those, so, because it's hard for me to write and talk and, thank
No,
you.
the minutes are excellent, and you're certainly welcome to them.
Okay, thank you.
I'm very encouraged that you're working with the neighbors and neighbors are working with you. That's a good
That was
sign.
always my intent, and actually I developed a very good relationship initially with the people
Excellent.
over on B Street. They were very, very nice to me and talked to me and looked at my plans, so, okay, bye-bye.
Good luck.
Take care.
Okay.
All righty, we have a certain amount of time before 9:25, when we will have another opportunity to continue a continued public hearing.
zoning bylaws?
We have a huge chunk of time, Mary. Are you willing to go through the zoning bylaws?
Absolutely. Okay, so the Zoning Advisory Committee has come up with a number of things as recommendations to the planning board. We all are meeting next Tuesday as well. We're hoping to have 1 or 2 additional recommendations to come to you. But the list that begins on page 9 of the packet, so it's the planning board memo,
Oh, yeah.
is a very good summary.
Oh,
I can go back and forth to the, to the actual wording of each one, but this is an excellent summary.
Good idea.
So that's what I suggest we go through. All right? Yep.
Point of clarification, please. Special town meeting, February 11th, is different than the annual town meeting. So what we're talking about now is for the annual town meeting in May.
May.
Okay.
Correct. So, and my understanding is that each one of these, we need to vote on as to whether or not we will want to send it to town meeting, to the warrant, right? And then we have to hold a public hearing. Yeah, prior to, when does the public hearing need to be done?
Before town meeting.
Before town, okay, so it doesn't have to be
Anytime
done by
before town meeting?
February 5th.
But we usually do it February, right?
Okay, so the votes need to take place before the February 5th deadline, but the public hearing takes place after that. Right? Okay. got it.
Yes, this is a vote to secure a spot on the warrant for each of them.
Got it.
We can remove them from consideration from the warrant if we so choose, but this, we can't put them on after February 5th.
Yes.
Right, so
All
we
right.
have to vote to put them on.
Okay, good. So, the first recommendation has to do with temporary banners over the streets. This was a request by the Board of Selectmen, who I believe got some wording approved several years ago that did not include appropriate dimensions. So we made a few changes. The banners still need to go through the Board of Selectmen for approval to be put up. Okay, so that, it doesn't take away that. It's
Have
not
we
like
been
everybody
flying
putting them up.
illegal banners? Is that what we're saying? Is that what's been happening?
The Family Day banner was larger than the size.
I think right now, because it's
Did the Board
restricted
of
to about this big,
Selectmen
that
approve
they have to get a
it?
special permit in addition to the Board of Selectmen doing something
right.
in order to hang a normal kind of banner. So, 3 things we changed. One was the number of days a banner can be displayed. 14 days, changed it to 30 days. The maximum size was increased to 180 square feet from 75 square feet. And the current wording says over Main Street and did not allow any place else. And we thought, even though Main Street is the most likely location, there may be situations in which the selectmen would want to approve it over other streets. So-
School Row, maybe, right?
So, and also Main Street is eventually going to be putting all poles underground, so we won't have.
Where
any
will we
banners
hang our
anymore.
banners?
So those are the 3 changes that we are proposing.
I presume the 180 square feet is some typical size?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I add to this? Because EHOP was actually the one that wrote the original signs bylaw for the temporary banner a few years ago, not the selectmen. And we had gotten the size recommendation from the town of Holliston, which had done it for a lot longer. the Family Day banner, I believe, was oversized, and I thought it looked okay, so I'd have no objection to changing it to the larger size. The 30-day, and switching it to other public roadways, I think is also a good idea. Like you said, the poles downtown will be gone. But the 14 to 30 days, I'm a little wavering on that, because 30 days seems like an awfully long time, especially if they can go on any street. We could have them all over the town for 30 days. Like,
It wouldn't be automatically for 30 days, and Board of Selectmen could still limit it.
well, anyway, I'm supportive of the bylaw change in general, just I'm hesitant about 30 days. So I would certainly want to put it on the warrant, but
I agree. I don't want to have any illegal banners flying over Main Street or otherwise.
So why did we remove the requirement that it was just Main Street?
Because Main Street is not going to have poles.
Oh.
it has to be hung by.
Well, they'll have light poles that you can have the vertical ones, and those would be more likely to be 75 square feet. So maybe at that point it would be, we'll change it back, but in this case, you know, it doesn't.
Well, it would be a maximum size, right? So you could have a
maximum.
75 square
Right, so
foot
you
banner
could
if
still
that's
have-
what you wanted. And also, I guess the discussion was that you might want one. I can see, there's a lot of excellent publicity that happens up on the tennis courts.
Tennis court, yeah.
Yeah.
That actually was the one raised, is the tennis court location. That there's-
Yeah. And everybody everybody drives.
Is that 75 square feet?
There's really high demand for the tennis court banner spot, and that sometimes you can't get your banner there if they don't have room, and they only let you have it for 2 weeks.
That's
But
why-
if somebody could take it up for 30 days,
See,
someone else.
this is not for the tennis court spot. This
I
is
know.
for
Over the
the
street.
street.
But it could be
instead of
overhead
the
and
tennis
around.
court spot.
Yeah.
So it's actually providing more availability.
Question,
yeah.
how many places in town actually have poles on both sides?
Yeah, we were thinking about that. Not too many, but again, this just gives some flexibility to the Board of Selectmen to allow it elsewhere.
This is practice for town meeting. This is a microcosm of what's going to happen.
Except I won't be able to rebut each and every
Yeah.
comment.
Maybe you will.
You have your chance.
Well, would people be able to maybe put a temporary pole or something if they need it, or?
It's not terrible feedback, though, to take back to Zach and just say, wondering about the 30 days, understand the Board of Selectmen will have the decision-making. Just let them know that those are soft questions that came up right away.
I'm a little concerned about the public roadways being too broad, maybe limited to Hayden Row and Main Street, or maybe another road, but I think all public roads kind of.
Somebody's going to ask to hang one across Wilson Street. They just are.
The way the new wording is, it's really an unlimited.
It still has to be.
But like the Woodville section on Wood Street.
Yeah.
True.
There could be an
True.
opportunity for
Yeah.
a banner there for some thing, and they do have,
Local neighborhood
street
activity.
lights.
That's
and
actually a nice
telephone poles
location
down
for
there.
one, yeah.
It can make the Horribles Parade much more adventurous, too. Just swinging from them and
There you go.
it's working.
But it is certainly possible that you would field discussion and amendments on town. We'll have the public hearing too, so that's the next time we'll have an opportunity to kind of find out how people feel initially.
Just a question, I guess from point of order, is if we think, as the planning board, that 30 days is too long, is that something we should address now, or is that something we should address at the public hearing, or can we address it at either?
So to the extent that this becomes your article, you could make any changes that you want
At any time.
At any time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good to put it on the warrant like this, and with the public hearing, we could decide to change it if we needed to.
Yeah. I don't necessarily feel like as long as we're sort of generally in agreement that it's a good article to put up, I don't think we have to fine tune it. I'd actually argue against fine tuning it too much before that first public hearing.
Yeah.
Because, you have no idea what people will come forward with different ideas and so forth. So we might as well field them all, but.
Okay.
So. I am very relieved we're going to be in compliance, though.
So do we need to vote on these to go on the warrant individually, or?
I don't think we have to vote on them individually.
Okay, so.
I mean, if we,
Unless anything stands out.
yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Elaine, but I don't think we, yeah. Okay. All right, how about number 2?
Okay, number 2 is the commercial solar voltaic screening. Basically, the belief that it would be great to be able to give a little bit more oomph to the bylaw, but recognizing that limiting this is restricted by a lot, in terms of the state review of the laws and so on. So the only wording that we suggested to add is the wording that I found in a different bylaw. Forming an effective year-round screen. So just to add that to the parts about screening. So the whole paragraph would read: a visual impact of commercial solar voltaic installation, including all accessory structures and appurtenances, shall be mitigated. All accessory structures and appurtenances shall be architecturally compatible with each other whenever reasonable. Structures shall be shielded from view by vegetation, forming an effective year-round screen, and or joined and clustered to avoid adverse visual impacts. Okay? So that is the only change that we felt like could make it past the legal issues.
I think that's a really good idea.
And it might give the planning board additional, negotiation possibilities.
Did you talk about other things in terms of the solar screening or permitting?
Screening, no.
That was the only change that we Zach
The
talked
only
about?
change that we're suggesting.
Okay. Yeah,
But,
that's fine, I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, basically, there's a lot in here that talks about screening. And we didn't feel like there was much wording changes that could be made, because there is already a lot in here.
On this one, not to nitpick, I appreciate you guys put a lot of hours into this. But I think we're already covered, because year-round screening, when we're approving projects, we have the bylaws and the states, the fencing with the slats, various options, and then if there's planted materials, usually arborvitae, and that's a year-round pine kind of tree. So have we ever approved anything that wasn't year-round type of screening? I don't think there is that type of screening that we have spoke about in any project. So I'm thinking this might just be extraneous, but
Like, personally, I've heard from people in town about other solar projects that have been approved, and they are visible from the homes nearby, either seasonally or even year-round. And so I don't know, I have no information about how those went through an approval process or what was done at that point with those, or even if it's just an enforcement issue of conditions. But yeah, this particular phrase was used in several other of our zoning bylaws.
Yep.
Regarding, the buffer zones and things like that for various construction. So that's the only reason that we thought that this might fly here too.
I'd speak in favor of it, if I may. I think it's helpful to anybody who's doing solar for them to have this, on the ground running, that, they don't have to guess what we're going for, and they can have an immediate solution. So it prevents, I think it helps as a guide.
but it is in the guide, where the fencing is spelled out exactly what we're looking for. And when we're talking about living trees, it's usually arborvitae, 99 times out of 100. So I'm not sure where we're falling short, why there's a need for this, other than to give us more options.
Arborvitae happen to fail in the wintertime, so I think we should probably look at that, unless they're covered. I mean, so I think what this opens us up to is different evergreen trees possibly than what's been used in the past.
I've been on Concom or Planning Board almost 10 years. I've never seen anything feel like that. Okay, but go ahead.
I think part of what we were trying to avoid is the bylaw has certain setback requirements, and reading the way the visual impact statement was written previously, if you had a site with the setback, and the setback was, you know, a wooded area, then that is visually shielded. It's not year-round visually shielded, but it's visually shielded by vegetation. Come November, there are no leaves on that, and it's no longer shielded. We just wanted to make it clear.
It's also fencing.
Hold on. No back and forth, Frank.
Sure, okay.
Thank you. I don't see where it says you have to have a fence around it.
It's in all of our solar, through the chair, all our solar bylaws mention that there's fencing with screening.
Solar panels are, I think they do have to be fenced in.
And again,
You said industrial.
the one on Hayden Row Street, behind a reconstructed house, is a chain link fence, no bushes, no nothing, see you straight through that backyard into the solar array. So I don't know what screening there was put in there for that one, because there's nothing screened at any point in the year. So
And I think, so if I can jump in here, I actually, first of all, like the more explicit language of the effective year-round screen for solar farms. I think one of the natural challenges we face with solar farms is the inclination to cut down as much vegetation as possible to get as much solar panel exposure, right? So we're trying to push back a little bit gently against, making it like the Hayden Row one, which I don't know that I've ever even noticed or seen. I don't.
No, you can.
But I will drive by. But the other reason I'm kind of interested, and maybe this is not even I'm kind of interested to hear the discussion on town meeting floor about solar photovoltaic installations, where we have seen such a number of them come forward, and how, just how people are feeling about them, sort of exploring the conceptually going forward, what we might feel like as a town.
Yeah.
If we even had any flexibility in there, but just to at least understand how people are feeling about them as they go in. But also want to say that no property owner owes any other property owner invisibility, right? So there's a common sense thing. People are entitled to put solar panels in, and they're not necessarily obligated to make it invisible to the passerby.
We did also have an interesting conversation, Zach, about Wellesley, was it? And they've got overlay districts for this type of installation, as opposed to just...
But the wording is encourage solar in these overlay districts. Not necessarily, they can't disallow it elsewhere, that's my understanding. But they're encouraging it in these particular overlay districts.
And I think that we're finding, and we're learning more as we go along, that the state has intentionally established guidelines and regulations to encourage solar, and that's a good thing. We just happen to also love our trees. Okay, I'm in favor. Is anybody not in favor necessarily? I know, okay. We do, just procedurally for the board and for the public, we do vote it specifically at the public hearing.
Okay, got it.
But
we do have to vote to put them on the warrant.
We are voting to put them on the warrant, but they could come off the warrant, is what I'm saying. So they can't go back on after tonight. So in order to keep open the possibility of having them on the warrant, we have to vote them tonight.
Okay. The rest of the ones we'll discuss tonight have to do with changes in the either by right or special permit allowed uses within either Industrial A, Industrial B, or the Professional Office District, which is the Franklin Road, is that right? That particular site on Franklin Road that is currently...
Liberty Mutual was there.
Mutual, yeah, that's right. Okay, so So all of the next suggestions really have to do with encouraging by stating it specifically in a by right or a special permit area of the bylaw in order to perhaps expand the way people might think about certain commercial development. Okay? So the first one is educational uses, and that ironically, they don't need to have this in the zoning bylaws. Because of the Dover Amendment, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, Elaine, because of the Dover Amendment, it is allowed. So this use is allowed, educational institutions and restrictions in vocational schools, things like that. It's allowed anywhere in business districts or industrial districts, or maybe even residential, I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
anywhere.
So we really don't need to put it in here. But we thought that, I believe some people are thinking that the Franklin Road site might be a great use, would be a vocational school. And maybe this will encourage it. So that is the reason it's being put in, or recommended to be put in, all right?
So I'm not overly enthused by that approach. I'll just give you my first impression. But, I'm not going to fall on my sword, but if it's already allowed, it doesn't, I don't know.
I think there's no harm in it, though, because
it's
those are
just
nice, quiet uses.
It's a nice, quiet, yes. It's a use we like, so let's, I don't know that we encourage a particular development type by
I don't know that we do
this approach. That's not me objecting to that vision for that property. It's a nice, quiet use. Why wouldn't I love that? And they like trees, I hope. But it just seems like a very unique approach, like an approach we've never taken in any other zoning bylaw that I know of. That's all.
This is where I have to say, I wasn't there for that meeting. It's the industrial zones. In my mind, those zones are established for a certain purpose. And schools and the things that are listed here are allowed everywhere, and we don't need to specifically point them out. We also continuously talk about increasing our commercial base, which is what those areas are there for.
Set aside for.
And these uses, if they're not for profit, do not generate any real estate income, real estate tax income for the town. So to me, to use that space and try and encourage that space for this use in all of our industrial areas is counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish with those districts. So that's just my take on it. I don't believe it should be there as a called out item, but.
Anybody else?
I can see both sides. If it's Mass Bay Community College, they're not going to be paying taxes. If it's a private driving school or something, I'm not sure of the rules there. But that Liberty Mutual building would be ideal for some sort of vocational program. Inside their buildings and rebuildings, and they take things apart and they rebuild them, and they were testing safety. So inside there's a big gymnasium type of space. There's little houses that are built and rebuilt constantly, or they had been. There's a driving track in the back for safety testing. There's a bunch of office spaces there. I've done some projects there. It's a great building. But overall, I agree with Carol's assessment that it's maybe may take away from the town too in regards to taxes. I would like to see that space in particular be used for the good of the town, of the community. But I also agree with Muriel's assessment too, so it's...
Well, I'd rather favor, can I just say this? I rather favor leaving it in place until the public hearing, just so everybody gets a chance to weigh in on it, and saving a space for it, but that's just my initial impression, that it doesn't really strike me as something I'm gonna vote yes on.
Can I also just point out that we're talking about industrial A, industrial B,
Right.
and professional office park?
Yeah.
The Franklin Road is the professional office piece.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's one
It could be
piece.
I mean, if people wanted to make a change to this, it could be changed to just the P district, so.
Right, right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I actually think that was the way it was originally discussed, and then it was like, well, why not, if it's already allowed by the Dover Amendment, well, why don't we just add it all of them? I mean, so, I think that was where it went.
Amy?
So I really appreciate Carol's thoughts. I hadn't thought of it in that way. Just one counter thought, though, was that bringing people to an area, even if they're going there for school, they then purchase things at stores and restaurants in the commercial and industrial zones. So even though maybe they're not paying as much tax if it's a nonprofit school, do they really
Still brings some commercial benefit.
some benefit? Yeah,
Potentially.
right. And we do already have a preschool in the industrial zone, a church, right?
School in the industrial zone?
Well, we do have the Playhouse
South
Preschool.
Street.
The
South Street.
Playhouse Preschool
South Street is
is on South Street.
Oh, okay.
That's true.
And the Vineyard Church is on
And
South
they
Street.
can go, I mean, we have one we have one off Wild Road. And, in among the palaces.
I remember that one.
It's Sunshine?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I guess my whole thing is just initially, they can go anywhere. I have no objection to them going anywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we need to make a change to the zoning. I hadn't thought of Carol's point either. But it's only me, and my feeling is to leave the suggestion on until we have the public hearing.
Sure. Yep, okay. Recommendation 4 is indoor recreational uses in industrial A
Very
and
excited
industrial
about
B
this, actually.
districts. This would be adding that as a by right use. I know that indoor recreation, at least Elaine included the definition of indoor recreation in our memo here on page 10.
It's indoor skydiving.
So this definition is in the bylaws. So, such activities may include swimming, skating, indoor skydiving, soccer, bowling, and other similar uses, but shall not include arcades and billiard halls.
Oh.
Because we know how bad billiard halls are, unless accessory to another indoor recreation.
That reminds me of a musical.
Yeah, musical.
No, that's where we went to. Okay. But
So, I mean, did we talk about changing that? I mean, I am not a huge fan of arcades and billiard halls. Did we intentionally leave it that way?
no, the indoor recreation definition stands in the bylaws right now.
Okay. Okay.
And we didn't change the definition of it. We just said we should allow it by right in industrial A and industrial B districts only.
Okay.
And again, with some dissent, but nonetheless, it does add to the tax base, and the South Street area
Gonna have
is
your
a
moment.
mixture of different things. It's not manufacturing.
Okay.
This was also voted on the night that I was not there.
You just missed the wrong
I missed
meeting.
one meeting, which is not the right one to miss. I am not necessarily opposed to having them in that district. My issue with it is them being a use by right. I think they should be a special permit item, just because I think that's an ever-changing thing. It's not necessarily the best use of that zone. And if you make it a use by right, you basically have given up all control over how that site develops. It just needs to meet the zoning requirements of the site. You lose so much control by putting it in as a use by right.
And there's the counter discussion to that, because that was discussed even without me there, was that the special permit process is a disincentive to small business. Perhaps large chains and so on are not necessarily intimidated by a special permit process, but And there's also, the zoning board of appeals very typically will be, introduces a lot of things to the ZAC that are, we get a lot of these requests and we just approve them, so please,
Yeah.
put things in.
Is that one of these? Do
No.
we have a lot of these?
No,
Is that where this
That's a
came
planning
from?
board special permit, right?
No, it isn't.
This would be.
The only
Board of
planning board
Appeals.
special permit is the marijuana establishments or something.
In these districts, it's Board of Appeals.
Board of appeals.
It's a use, right?
It's a use. Yeah, and
I stand
in
corrected.
all likelihood, it's gonna be a use of an existing space too. I mean, there was, I don't know if it's still there or not, but there was an indoor play place.
There was, Playtown
First
Express.
building to the left, on South Street, right when you turn. And I took my kids there all the time, when they were little.
So I'm just asking, I intuitively love the idea of indoor recreational facilities. My family had loved them and traveled all over to go to different ones. How is the tax rate set? It's just on the building and the appurtenances in the building, right?
For commercial property, it has to do with the value, but that's an assessing question.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, it's definitely a bump over an empty building sitting there, right?
That's the point,
Definitely
is
a
that
bump over
it
that.
drives business in the
And
area.
right, and it may pull people in, it might pull people to
Restaurants.
get here, yeah.
And they
But
can fit into existing industrial style buildings.
that are currently sitting empty, as an example. So I actually, but I get the point that it's not necessarily the best use of the space. If we had two competitors looking to use the space, we would want to choose the one that was going to bring in the most tax dollars, maybe. But it's interesting, anyway. I don't oppose it.
Okay. Any other comments on that one? Or questions and discussions? Recommendation 5, accessory retail to a manufacturing use in industrial A and industrial B districts. This would allow, obviously, an accessory retail attached to an existing manufacturing, so outlet store, whatever they call it, so. And it would be allowed by right, but the maximum area is 5,000 square feet for the retail portion.
And what size, and it's not proportional necessarily to the manufacturing size? That's the thing I would maybe think about. I don't necessarily know that it's a factor, but I might think about that.
Just for the record, I like this one.
Oh, good. Thank goodness. Yeah, I do too. I think it's a little innovative. It's awesome.
Okay.
Have a Dell EMC shop.
That's right.
You never know.
No kidding. Okay, and the next one is restaurant seats. So at the present time, in industrial B, we're just talking industrial B here. At the present time, they're allowed by right with no more than 100 seats.
Just for Mrs. Kramer and potentially some people in the public, 1B is where?
It is on the east side of 495.
Lumber Street area?
Lumber Street.
Lumber Street.
Lumber
And
Street
Elmwood
and
Park.
the Elmwood, yeah.
Okay.
And there's a couple of satellite locations, so E.L. Harvey is also an industrial B district. And also where the.
Couple spot zones.
Yeah.
The Wilson Street solar on the Cedar Street side is industrial B, near the snow dump.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's a tiny little
I'm gonna put a
drop
restaurant in
of
there.
zoning that happened there. That's interesting. Fascinating. All right.
Okay, so now
Restaurant
this-
down
now
by
this
E.L.
says-
Harvey's.
So the proposal is to remove it from a special permit requirement. I think there's a typo here in the way it's worded.
Yeah.
Remove it from the special permit requirement for restaurants with 100 seats or more, not or less, okay? So we want to remove the restriction of the 100 seats.
Present time
But
restaurant.
only within the
makes more
hotel
sense.
overlay district
portion of the industrial B. Hotel overlay district being,
That changes the entire meeting.
the hotel
So
overlay district.
what are we aiming to do? What are we trying to do?
Make it easier, I mean, 100 seats for a restaurant is minuscule.
Okay.
I mean, it-
Give me an example.
It's gonna be 25 tables of 4, right?
25 tables of 4.
25 tables.
So it's like the spoon, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we want
Similar.
to make it easier to put in restaurants. But we kept it within the hotel overlay district of industrial B so that it wasn't abutting the residential area on Elm Street.
Okay. Can I ask why you didn't put it in the rest of the hotel? Some of the hotel overlays in industrial
Yeah.
A, I think.
Yeah, people didn't want it in industrial A. They didn't want to open it up to industrial A for some reason.
There is no restriction on number of seats in industrial A.
Oh, that's
Oh,
fine.
it's not necessary. Okay.
Not necessary.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay, there we go.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Would
So,
this,
oh, go ahead, Frank.
would this cover Dunkin' Donuts if it didn't exist now? Or is that outside of this?
In the rural business district, so it's not affected.
It's not in that little wedge.
So, yeah, the rural business is like right along Main Street, right?
And it doesn't affect Starbucks either?
Is there a limit to the size of a restaurant? I mean, no.
What was your question?
Is there a limit to the size of a restaurant that is allowed?
It's the permitting and the number of seats. So if it's more than 100 seats right now, it needs a special permit in industrial B.
Carol, how'd you feel about this one?
I wasn't there. No. I think I was all right with that, although I wasn't there. They were very busy that night.
Yeah.
Probably 'cause
Did
I
they
wasn't
do
there
everything while
talking.
you weren't there?
Well, I wasn't there talking. You got a lot more done.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting to think about.
I would yeah, I'm in favor of a lovely restaurant or two, for sure.
Yeah, I
If it
guess that's
happens.
the idea is, can we increase the likelihood of there being some more restaurants to put in? Okay. Any other comments?
If Fran's watching this at home or live, or when he watches it on tape, Restaurant Row.
Restaurant Row.
Is that what you want?
Is that what he was in favor of?
I would generally be in favor, but specifically, I have some concerns, but I'd be willing to see what the discussion leads to.
One thing that I always have been finding is that the public comes up with things that we never thought of. Okay, so recommendation 7, car wash facilities in industrial A district. So, right now, they are allowed by special permit in the downtown business and business districts only. And this is a recommendation to make this a use by special permit. Okay, so it wouldn't be a by right, it would be by special permit. And this would be in industrial A, and we included some verbiage that basically says that it would be using sustainable, efficient resource utilization, that sort of thing. So.
And will that stand up? That
Because we didn't want to put in specific, because 20 years from now, maybe the technology has changed enough that somebody was saying waterless car washes. So we didn't want to say efficient use of recycling of water.
I don't think I want to know what they're going to wash cars with in that case.
Well, cars will have rockets.
Yeah, totally different mass
Car wash
transportation.
facilities. I find myself wondering if anybody's going to be overly enthused, but we'll see. Definitely not downtown, though.
That was
That's the
a
thing,
requested one.
downtown.
Yeah, from,
Yeah, but we were talking about how downtown would be
The worst.
worse.
Yeah.
But, because of, possible queuing and.
Just general lack of attractiveness as well.
Could we consider removing them from the downtown at the same time doing this?
Well, we talked about that too, but, it was raised that it was requested by a particular gas station owner as possible add-on.
In the downtown?
Yeah, I think that's how it was originally added to the downtown, is that right?
Several years ago.
And they've never
They
applied?
haven't, gone through with it, but they want the right to do that, to improve their property.
It is a special permit, though.
Yeah.
It's not a by right.
So I don't have any objection to it being a special permit in the industrial A.
No, I think it's a good idea, now to contemplate taking it out of the downtown business, though.
Okay, so there's several other things coming up next week that we might be able to come to a conclusion and vote on and get back to you for the following week, but not guaranteed. There's just one or two more items that we're going to try to get that far.
All right, so are we in agreement generally as a board that we put them all on the warrant for consideration at least at the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, thank you, Mary. That was
Do we need a motion or just?
I don't think so, right? Do we have to vote it? Yes. Oh, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nice job, everybody.
Could I ask a related
You
question
can.
about the ones coming up for discussion? Or was it in the packet? Is there a list of what else you're considering?
Oh, yes.
If it's in the packet, I'll just.
One has to do with some things that Deb had suggested, and she's working on wording possibilities. So you were working on the signage one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so has to do with signage and overhanging things on Main Street.
Yeah, height, safety, relationships.
The other one we were going to try to address was a new recommendation or a new suggestion by some residents of new developments who are on private ways and are asking us to review and consider the bylaws related to the private payment for the trash pickup, I think it was.
Yeah.
The garden apartment
Yep.
where
Yeah.
you have private trash removal.
Oh,
So,
just for fun, we might have to have the deputy town moderator moderate that discussion.
yep.
Okay, all right, so interesting.
Can I ask if you're considering, or maybe you already decided not to? I think Gary and I had both brought up at the ZAC public hearing, the agricultural districts. There's some large parcels that are currently being used for, they're open, like the YMCA, the labor training, and the golf course. But they could have home, if those businesses no longer exist, they could become homes because homes are allowed by right and residential. Did you look at the zoning of
We had not,
agricultural?
we did not think that we would be able to examine that in depth enough prior to the deadlines for this year.
Is it on the list?
Yeah, it's on our list. It's still
Yeah.
on our list for this coming
Okay.
year.
Because I do continually hear from the public, because I think we all do, about the fear of the town growing too fast. And there was just a news article that we've grown by 20% since 2010 through 2017. And people wondering what tools we have to slow growth. And I don't know if I really support the tools that we could put in place, because they're like snob zoning. But I do feel like sometimes we need to have that discussion in front of the public and let them weigh in if they.
So Amy, how can we possibly rezone that to?
So like in the agricultural, we could increase the minimum lot size, I think, right? It's like right now, I think it's 1 acre and a third, and we could increase it to 2 acres like some towns have done in agricultural zone.
Are those, all those parcels in agricultural zones?
I think so.
All the big
That would
ones?
affect all agricultural zones, right?
Yeah?
It would,
Yeah.
unless you wrote it to not, yeah.
Are there any other tools that we can use to limit growth?
Well, setback requirements could be increased, I guess. Trying to think.
Long discussion.
Yes, it would be a very long
Lots
discussion.
of creative things you could think about.
But I think the public is hungry for that discussion,
Well, there's, there's the temporary moratorium on new developments, so.
I didn't think that was feasible, but I don't know.
Only for a short period of time, and if you're actively planning something, so you're doing it for a planning purpose. It's not a growth stopping. You can't just say no.
We have a moratorium on Osmond right now, right?
Pardon me?
We have a moratorium on Osmond right now, don't we?
No, we don't have any moratoriums.
Oh, I thought Ken brought that.
That's garden apartments, right? Those were taken out of the bylaws, right?
It's not, no, it's not a moratorium, it's just that the planning board can't issue a special permit unless, basically, we need the affordable housing. So, because it's a 10%,
Right.
25, 10% affordable housing requirement.
I had one other thought on agricultural. So the golf course use, for example, just as an example, are there other things that are not currently allowed by right in agricultural that we would like to allow in those big areas that are open? That might be less costly to the town than more homes, but still would not be upsetting to the neighbors. I know, that's the thing, but there's not too much demand for agriculture anymore.
The other thing is, as we contemplate those parcels, I don't necessarily disagree that the public is hungry for it or whatever, but I'm going to be very careful, I think, that we're not imposing regulations on, 3 individual landowners.
Right, that's why I was suggesting all of agricultural, because those tend to be where the big unused parcels are.
And then I just, I guess I would rather find a way that's more proactive than restrictive necessarily. Like, what do we want in the for the future on a parcel like that if we wanted something? How do we incentivize something how do we incentivize agriculture? Or how do we incentivize what we want to preserve it? What's there? And I know that, are all those properties I think are under Chapter 61A protections.
So that the town would have a right of
First refusal.
Okay.
So one thing we can do in the near term is, is research and prepare and perhaps start to save money or build a fund
in case they
to be prepared to exercise those rights if the town so chose.
So if that has to wait because Zach's going to be around now, so that's
Yep.
a good thing. It could be discussed later
Yep.
after town meeting.
I don't disagree, though, that people are really interested in that discussion, but it's a complicated discussion.
Right, it's extremely complicated.
And hopefully the Y and the golf course, and what was the other one?
Laborers training.
Laborers aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
The reason I brought it up is in my sister's town in Texas, they have a big golf course, but they found out that golf is a declining sport just across the country, and they're very worried about what that parcel's going to become in her little town of Texas, which got me thinking about art. Right, it's probably going to be solar farm.
But it's already clear. It's
already cleared, though. That's true.
You got the trees going down there next to it.
So we just tell them to plant more trees after the ones they cut down on Fruit Street, and I'm not quite over it, but, I'm seeing my therapist. All right. How about this point of discussion? First of all, can we probably quickly discuss and vote the draft Planning Board 2018 annual report?
I have some questions. Again, I need to look for it. Where is it?
I'm so glad somebody else has to look for things.
So,
What page?
45.
through the chair, should we be opening the 925?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Opening and continuing? Or?
yes, thank you very much, actually. I had sort of taken it right off of my head.
Points.
Yes. I will entertain, when is that going to,
Yeah, we said
when are we
85.
suggesting they go to?
It's also the 25th.
There we go.
At 8 o'clock, and extend the deadline to March 11.
Only giving it a half an hour, though. That
because we set the other one at 8:30. Is that enough time for Whisper Way?
Well, it's going to have to be.
Okay.
What's on earlier than that? What's on at 7:30?
We thought we'd do the, public hearing, oh, wait a minute, public hearing for zoning amendments. No, I take this back.
Okay.
7:30 till 8:30. 8:30 we have Maspenock Woods, and we probably want zoning amendments for 7:30 for an hour.
Is that what is on?
We usually do it on February 25.
We could, or we could do it in March. But
March, okay, so that depends then.
But tentatively, we thought it might be February 25th.
Okay. Okay,
So then I'm thinking 9 o'clock for,
yeah, right, so we leave the zoning, leave the spot for the zoning.
For Whisper Way, 9 o'clock.
Okay, all right. So I will entertain a motion to open the continued public hearing for Whisper Way OSLPD definitive subdivision plan, and continue it to February 25th at 9 o'clock, and also extend the decision deadline to March 11th.
So you said till the 25th of February?
February 25th at 9 o'clock.
And we continue Maspenock Woods to 8:30?
Yep.
So that only leaves them a half an hour?
Yep.
Okay.
And extend the deadline to, the decision deadline to 3/11. Somebody like to make a motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Okay, thank you, Dave, by the way.
And just before you leave, for Maspenock Woods, they also need an extension of time. Is that also to March 11th?
March 11th.
To March 11th.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to extend the decision deadline for Maspenock Woods to March 11th as well.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions? Okay.
Did you say that?
Yep, Frank said nay. He's an opposer. Okay, thank you. All right, so the Planning Board 2018 Annual Report.
Okay, my question had to do with, whether or not the list of things is things that were discussed during 2018, or the final decisions or permits or so on were made in 2018?
The decisions.
The decisions, okay. So, and the first major projects approved, Maspenock Woods, isn't that on our agenda?
That was a previous.
It was previously approved.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, and now it's coming back to us?
It's a different thing on that,
Even
on that
further back.
property. Yep,
Good.
yep.
Stormwater permits,
Issue, maybe we can say.
Issue.
so we approved the stormwater permit for the solar facility that we didn't approve?
We approved the stormwater, but not the special permit.
Just checking. I think. And I think that was the only ones that I was like
Yeah, awesome.
questioning. Okay.
Anybody else?
And it might be good to say on the last sentence of the opening paragraph that specifically that these are during the calendar year of 2018, these were, approved or permitted or whatever. Yeah. Just to clarify.
We don't necessarily, okay, we do, never mind.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful to the public if they either said issued or approved.
Just, it is an interesting way that it lands into the annual report.
Yeah.
Right, just, yeah.
And in 2019, we're talking about 2018's town meeting with some of these things in the past, but this is what we worked on.
Right.
It's actually what we finished, yeah.
2018
Just list the ones that were adopted.
Sponsored several, yeah.
I see.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much. Looks good. Do we need to vote that?
Yes.
I will entertain a motion to approve the Planning Board Annual Report 2018 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Kobe. Meeting schedule. Our meeting previously set for February 11th needs to be canceled or rescheduled. I don't know if there's a rescheduled spot for it. I don't think so, because there's a special town meeting, I should say, a little plug for special town meeting, February 11th.
And there's February vacation.
And there's February school vacation. I don't ever do anything fun, but some people do, so. Plus, that would mean 3 meetings in February. Oh, Kobe says no. Kobe says cancel it. Do we have anything on the schedule for that night?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Decisions do.
Special town meeting.
How could that be 3 meetings in February?
Be special town meeting, because that's mandatory for us. Yep. And then
What,
if we had.
do we know the topic of that? What is it?
Yeah, it's a TIF.
TIF.
For,
Increment financing agreement.
Oh, okay.
for a new company on South Street, Lichen,
What is it
Lichen
called?
Biotech or Lichen
Bioscience.
Bioscience.
And anything else that hops onto the warrant between now and then?
So point of, well, I guess context for that is, it could be 2 nights, could be 3 nights, but probably will just be 1 night.
You know what, it's gonna be 1 night. This is what I'm projecting forward. It's gonna be 1 night. We don't have anything to add to the craziness, right? The planning board's gonna stay out of the fray. Okay, so I would recommend canceling the February 11th meeting, but open to
Cancel.
anybody else?
I
Dave and I are not coming.
think it'd be great. We're going to be busy that week. If we don't have anything on the schedule now, it's because we worked
I think
hard.
it's just a practical consideration. Okay, so we will cancel it. I think we voted the meeting schedule previously, didn't we?
This would be a change.
Yeah, okay. All righty, perfect. Do we have to vote it? No, we don't have to vote it. Just not meeting.
But editing this entry to town.
Well, technically, aren't we meeting?
We are meeting, actually. It probably will be posted for us too, I imagine. Aren't town meetings usually?
There's nothing on the warrant that
For us.
has anything to do, then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but we are by charter
Just now?
required to attend.
What's the date of that special town meeting?
It is.
February 11th.
Oh, would you tell me last year? I don't think all the planning board members were there.
What? Well, I was there. I'm
I was
just
there,
saying.
but.
And John was ill, so we're gonna give him
Oh,
a
right,
pass.
sure.
So, yeah, it is required by charter. I think it was.
It was.
I've got something on
Yeah.
Wednesday, just.
Did all elected officials?
Yeah.
All board members.
Of
Any board? Like
Yeah.
even tiny little boards that barely meet? Okay.
Is that true with the ATM too?
So I always go every night, so I'm all clear, but
Just to be
I
clear,
can see that
I
everyone else does not go.
Yeah, I don't think that everybody complies with that
Yes, I
directive
think
in the
that's
charter,
true.
but I do think the charter says that.
So you run a tight ship in the planning board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We will all
man,
be
hey,
there.
you guys better show up. I'm sorry, let me be explicit. This planning board better show up. Unless you have a really good excuse, you know. I should say, we all heard, but the public didn't necessarily hear, although maybe there was an article in the paper, I have no idea, that Georgia Wilson, our principal planner, has left to pursue a master's degree, which we celebrate and applaud her ambitions for, and we wish her well, and we know she'll do very well in the future, and she was really a wonderful asset for us while she was here. But alas, she is no longer here. So what is the process, Elaine, and what, we should probably just talk about the vacancy and what that means.
So the position is posted, and I believe the deadline for submitting applications is the end of January, some 23rd maybe. And so at that point, we start a review and an interview process, and as before, it'd be great to have participation by one or more, but not a quorum of the planning board.
And you're anxious to fill that position so you can have your Monday nights back?
I am.
Yeah. For a lot of reasons.
I do enjoy being here, but.
Not that I don't love being here.
But I also like being home.
So I'm certainly happy to support that interview process. I can just tell you that it is better for me, if it's possible, that we schedule interviews in the first part of the day, because I work nights, overnights now. Not usually overnights, but, is anybody else interested?
I'm interested, and I'm available during the days, so.
I'm interested as well. And I just wanted to take this minute to say that I really appreciate the people that you've hired in the past. You know, I don't know the reasons and you know, what goes on, but from the value that they brought to the board, I thought they were to be commended, both of them.
Thank you. Typically, there's a 2-interview process. There's an initial kind of screening interview, quick interview. So usually we've brought the planning board in for the in-depth interviews, the second round, those candidates.
Works for me.
Yeah, that makes
I would like
sense.
to help if that's not too many.
Well, that's up to 4. So.
It's difficult for me to do daytime, so I'm happy if other people are available.
Yeah.
And just maybe extend it to Gary and Fran.
Fran
who
might
both-
be, yeah.
As long as it's not a quorum.
Right, so then we
We
would
do also
need
have
to,
staff present as well, so.
right, we'd need to sort of pare it right down if
Just
that
thinking
happened. But I just don't want
Too
them
big a group
to,
could be a little intimidating.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
Right,
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
If they can handle it in the
No,
interview,
that's
they won't be
really
able to
good.
handle it in live
That's
on
really
TV.
good feedback. Just ask them what their interest is, and then, you know, as busy as I am, I don't think I have to fall on my sword and necessarily be there. I just want to support it if I'm needed, so. Let's see if they're interested and have some sort of enthusiasm for it, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
Okay. And actually, just because it's a quorum situation now, we'll work that out, and then we'll come up with a process.
Yep.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Don't look now, but we could leave early, probably.
For good
Let's do it-
behavior?
Huh?
For good behavior?
For good behavior, except for Mr.
Except for you.
Except for the guy on the end. Does anybody have any reports, future agenda items, anything like that they're desperate to talk about? Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn? Oh, wait.
Hey, one more thing.
Yeah, yep.
We got a correspondence from Leonard Street, Box Mill
We did?
Road. I just noticed at the very end.
Buckland? Not Buckland.
I
Buckland?
think
Did I
it's-
stop reading?
Is it the same
Wall Street
person that
property.
does Buckland?
Yes. So
Okay.
Did I
forward
stop
that-
reading?
So I did forward that to Mr. Barberry, who's building Box Mill Road. And it also coincided with his application to the board, or request to the board for additional lots on Box Mill. And I suggested that he may want to resolve this issue before he proceeds with that.
That was the one to the left, right?
Yeah.
The one to the left of what?
So the letter.
Going in Leonard Street.
Okay.
Buckland is the area on the right.
Is it,
I drove
what's
down
the
there.
letter you're looking at? The Leonard
90, yeah.
Drainage catch basin?
It's not.
So the person writing the letter from the Wall Street Development Corporation is saying that water runoff from Box Mill subdivision is running onto Leonard Street, which in turn, I guess, runs into what would be the Buckland Street property. So this is complicated, but,
Yeah, because it was so easy before.
they're gonna come back before us.
Always been an issue. Water has always
Very
come
wet,
this
okay.
way. But I did suggest that he should address that, look into it before perhaps requesting additional lots.
Okay.
What
And so
was-
Buckland Street will be coming before us again soon anyway.
Does that affect Mr. Terry? Does it come down that?
Mr. Terry's It on will. on the bottom of it all. He's below it all.
So I just wanted to make sure all saw that, because it'll come up at the,
While
Is
we're on
that
this,
originally Terry property that is the box mill?
no,
I don't
No,
think so.
no.
you want further back. While we're on this subject, just briefly, me and Jim Soriello were asked to look at the situation, and there is water runoff, there's water barriers, and construction's kind of changed the way the water's flowing from Box Mill Road, and it's very complex. I have no idea. We need the scientists from the Conservation Commission look into it, or a Beta, someone to look into it and give us an engineering viewpoint of what it is. But right now, the road's iced up and in front of Mr. McBride's house, and it's not going to get any better through the winter. It's just going to get worse. And the more snow we get, the more water it's going to be. And we're going to get a lot of snow apparently next weekend.
Are there catch basins on that road and not piping underneath? Or?
There's a pipe that goes under the street right around there, and that's kind of broken. But it works, but it looks like it's kind of 30, 40 years ago it was put together, and maybe it hasn't been maintained since. We don't know if that's a DPW thing or if
Like
it's...
a culvert that goes across the road?
The culvert, yeah.
Under the road across?
And I took some photos, I can send them to you, Elaine. But it's beyond our, it needs the scientists to look at it and take measurements, and, you know, I'm very concerned about wet basements that are already wet, pretty wet, now they're getting much more wet, and I don't know how to measure that, so.
Well, fundamentally, the box mill development has to maintain their stormwater on their site, right?
That's right.
Okay.
For the most, I mean, water, they can let the water come that always came.
Yep.
But the question is, how much is that? Where does it go? Does it go in the same place? So it requires someone to take a look at it.
Okay.
Evaluate it.
All right. And who does that?
I think we've asked that his engineer do it, and then ours will review it.
Okay, perfect. Just for fun, the last page, I did stop reading when I got to the Board of Appeals hearing notice. I apologize. God. The growing locally thing might be an interesting event for people who are interested in that very discussion about large tracts of land and housing versus other kinds of growth and development.
I'm going to try to go to it, yeah.
When is it? Oh, February 13th.
February 13th.
3 to 5.
3 to 5 p.m., yeah.
Is that February break?
No, that's before break, isn't it? Is that, that's before break?
Yeah.
February break. I might like to go too, to be honest with you.
It's the very,
Yeah.
92.
Do you want to, is there any cost?
No,
It's free, but you have to register.
Yeah, do you want to just register for, who's interested in potentially going?
I'll go.
I wouldn't mind going. Me too.
February 13th.
I'll just have to write it down.
Does, Mary, do you mind registering all of us? or-
I will register all of us if they allow me to.
Okay. And then let us know if they
So-
don't.
So it was
And then,
Carol, and it was
I have some piece of mail here too that's correspondence. Can I open that?
From MAPC, it's a little calendar.
It's a little calendar. Would anybody like the MAPC calendar? It's nifty.
What is that? Statistics, some graphs.
Motion to adjourn?
Hold on.
Did you want to announce the Board of Appeals letters that were in here?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
I have zero interest in it. Okay, yes, Dave, you're up. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey, look at that. 9:45.
Wow. Amy, did you say you wanted to attend that as well?
No, if you,
Because, yeah, it's 3 to 5, so it's probably not possible.
right.
We're done.